Hello everyone, the game I'm going to share with you today is a game that was played by Vladimir Kramnik, commanding the white pieces, versus Kamsky, back from 1994 in their candidates match, the second game of the match. This was held at Trump Tower in New York City, and it was an amazing game. They played under some pretty bad conditions for chess though, as they were in boutique areas where people could look in at them like they were fish in a fishbowl. So that was a challenge that both players and all the players in those candidate matches had to overcome. By the time I went out there to see this amazing match being played by Kamsky versus Vladimir Kramnik, it was already over. And this game may give you a sense of why that may well very be. The match was decided by a score of 4.5 to 1.5. Kamsky came out on top, the underdog, as he was not expected to win this match because of Vladimir Kramnik's pedigree in terms of who he studied under and who he was a second for. For instance, Vladimir Kramnik in 1993 was a second to Garry Kasparov during his match against British Grandmaster Nigel Short. He actually had a higher rating than Nigel Short. So that must have been rather intimidating for Nigel Short to be playing a match not only against Garry Kasparov, but one of his seconds is higher rated than you are. That's a bit of a daunting task. But he played attacking chess. He was playing for the wins, Mr. Nigel Short. Now right here we've got basically what we had early on was we had a Nimzo Indian. So we have knight f6, e6, bishop b4, and then we had an English setup. So it's like a Nimzo Indian versus the English. Right here, d4, c takes, knight takes. So there's a little bit of a clarification in the center. And here Kamsky plays the queen to e7 so that he can recapture back with this pawn and not allow an exchange of queens. Now, Vladimir Kramnik makes a number of decisions that are a bit questionable here. And here he allows the pawns to not only be doubled on the c file, his white pawns here on c4, c3, but they're isolated. There's open lanes off to either side of them. So they would be very easy in an endgame for a king to just approach and gobble right off the board if nothing's able to protect them. Now there is a threat here, bishop to a3, skewering the queen to the rook. Kamsky is no fool, and he plays rook to d8. One move threat, one move solution. Bishop to a3 anyways, d7, d6. Okay. Now this used to work out wonderfully for Garry Kasparov in some of his best wins with the English opening, getting that rook on the semi-open or open b file. He played that in a number of games. It doesn't work out so well for Kramnik. Kamsky just comes over to defend the knight before he puts a rook here, so there's no cheapo tactics. And now Kramnik plays this move, and after the exchange of knights on d4, recapturing with the pawn was a bit of a mistake here. Queen takes. Now, remember, your line pieces, your queens, your rooks, your bishops, you want to check every line that emanates out of them. And where those lines cross for your pieces or your opponent's pieces, that might be a very important square. And so right here, the rook on b1 attacks b7, the bishop here on g2 attacks b7, and it's only defended once. So they, Kramnik could win that pawn, but might lose that pawn right there. That could be a problem. So Kramnik takes a timeout to defend, and now that allows Kamsky to not only defend but to attack a loose piece. John Noon, GM John Noon, world famous grandmaster, British, had this expression he liked to use, the LPDO, loose pieces drop off. So if you have a loose piece, you've got to protect it. Just holding on. Now the rook helps defend so the bishop can move. e4 was played. And after bishop to d7, it's clear that the bishop's going to come to a4 and hit this rook, maybe b5, hit that rook. They're on white squares, it's a white squared bishop. Now, in some of the databases that are online, they give the incorrect game score in two places, and this is one of them. They give this move rook to f3, which is ludicrous because the knight can grab the pawn, and then black can defend against the threats. And there's nothing prompting this rook to move yet, and it still leaves that rook on a light square. The actual move is rook to e1, as you'd find on any good chess database that's been properly curated. Something like, let's say, Chess Base, or something like the week of the week in chess, Mark Crowther's database. And so, right here, the move bishop to a4 is played, and then the rook slides to f3. So this is one area where if you look this game up online, you might find a couple databases have that move order wrong. Now the rook slides over here. Piggies on the 7th are very powerful. Kramnik attacks the queen. But Kamsky says, you know what? Let's exchange off that bishop. Let's get rid of your light squared bishop. I bet you're not going to be feeling too comfortable if you have light square weaknesses all around your king. You've built this pretty little fortress. That bishop does a great job there. Let's get rid of it. And Kramnik is like, no, I want to keep it. Let me pin this pawn to your rook so I can try some sort of shenanigans. Kamsky's like, okay, no sweat, no problem. Kramnik plays d5. Obviously, we're not going to take and lose a 5-point piece for a 3-point piece. We're not going to give up a rook for that bishop. What we are going to do, however, is we're going to attack that queen, which is a 9-point piece, or $9, or 9 pawns, however you want to, whatever unit you want to use to measure it. And of course, these values change as the game goes on. As the game evolves, the position evolves, the values of these pieces change. You're going to see quite a bit of that later on. And now the pawn can be captured. And here, this is where the fun starts. We see this move e5, which is threatening a knight, threatening a pawn. Kamsky doesn't capture the pawn. He moves a pawn, and he attacks a queen. And then right here, we have this queen to g5. And maybe give yourself a minute or two and think about what you might play here if you were in Kamsky's shoes. What would you do if you were playing the black pieces here? We'll assume you've done that and that you have hit pause if you needed more time. But we're going to take a look now and see what it was that he came up with. It was this incredible move right here. Now you might be saying to yourself, well, that's not so incredible. Pawn takes, and now Kramnik has a mate in 1. But it is not Kramnik who is on the move. It is Kamsky. And this here is where you have to think about forcing moves. All right, and this is something you can think about when it's your turn to move to help you play a higher quality game. You think about, okay, the first category of forcing moves are captures with check. The second category are all checks. The third category are all captures. You don't recapture, you're down men, you're going to lose in the endgame, unless there's some special positional consideration at play. And then the fourth category would be moves that improve the position, or box, only moves that keep you in the game. Or if you're losing, moves that complicate the game so you can hopefully get in a cheapo. Well, do you play them always in that order? No. You just use this to actually organize your thinking, and so that you may find the best move among your options. Well, we're going to continue. Rook takes rook, check. It's a capture with check. Well, the check is blocked. And Kramnik must be feeling pretty good about his mate in 1 here. But then that piece is also captured, and it is check. It's a capture with check. The bishop protects the rook. The king goes to g2. And there's a nifty little mate that could happen here. Otherwise, we progress to the way the game actually continued. But we'll give you a moment or two to think about that. Just hit pause. We'll assume you've done that. And the next move here, played by Kamsky. rook to g1, king to h3. And now, what do you think the next forcing move was that was played? Well, the capture with check doesn't really do anything constructive, but this check certainly does. Check. Now Kamsky takes a timeout to kind of delay the one move checkmate for another move, or so it would appear. And so now Kramnik has this checkmate here. Kamsky played this move for a very particular reason, though, or series of reasons. Now here, give yourself a moment to look for the best move. If you need to pause, please feel free to do so. We're going to resume. Assume you've taken that time and you paused it and you're ready for the move. If you were Garry Kasparov, what did you play? Well, you played check. You moved the pawn out of the way. Now the pawn's only 2 squares away from a promotion. That's also a bit of a problem for Kramnik. Rook blocks. You don't want to block with the pawn because you got 3 attackers on g4, so the rook blocks. And what did Kamsky do here? He sacrificed his queen. Second time in this match, and this is only game 2. He sacked it in round 1 as well. Now obviously you can't play pawn takes because rook to g4 is check. King can't go here, no liberty. King can go back, and then there's a discovered check, check. So the rook is immune to capture. There's a check. King comes up. Rook to h5 is a fork on king and queen. Queen takes, pawn takes. And then black is just up a whole rook, and Kramnik can resign. So, instead of all that fun, after Kamsky's move, queen takes rook, check, queen takes queen was played. And now, Kamsky played this move here, rook to h1, threatening the pawn. If you were to do something random, let's say, the threat here would be rook takes, king here, so no, because of the bishop. No. And then this move would be a nice little move. That would be checkmate. So there's a threat there. There is a threat there. So when you see a threat, you got to try and defuse it. And so here, Kramnik plays the pawn up, hoping to give his king an escape square, g3, and maybe come back and defend the h-pawn and then bring the queen up to h6 and go for that checkmate again. Well, you may want to take another moment and take a look at the board because Kamsky comes up with a beautiful move here. A basic threat, but you know, the tactics, the straightforward tactics, they work. And so what did Kamsky do here? We'll assume you've hit pause and you're back now. Well, the move would be h6. You can't take with the queen because rook takes pawn is a skewer. King moves, rook takes queen, king takes. Well, you're just down a whole rook. That's not going to work out so well for you. And the threat, of course, is g5, forking the queen and the king. So the king retreats to come back and defend that pawn. This pawn comes here and attacks the queen. No more mate threats from g5 or h6. And the queen comes over here to stop this pawn. Now, this is also a point in the game where some of the databases have the incorrect move. Some of them give rook to g1 instead of d3, d2. The rook to g1, they can defend with f3. In that game continuation, it goes d2. Queen could take rook, and then bishop to a4 would allow the promotion. But the actual move is better, d2, because now you're one move away from a promotion. Kramnik captures the pawn, and now Kamsky sets up a checkmate in 1. Bishop takes would be mate. this king is on a white square. That's a light squared bishop. No liberty here because of the g5 pawn. No liberty here on h2 because of his own pawn. So here, Kramnik plays f3. See if you can find the final move of the game that actually forced Kramnik to resign. He was compulsed to resign this game after this next move by Kamsky. What was that move? Well, we'll assume you've paused the video and when you're back again, and that you're ready. But the move that just ends it all is bishop to b5. Just brutally efficient. Bishop's going to go to f1, check. You can give up your queen for the bishop. You could go here, then the bishop pins the queen to the king. Queen takes bishop, rook takes, and then you're up a whole rook, and then a rook against a bishop. You got extra pawns, you got this pawn. It's completely over. So after this move, Vladimir Kramnik resigned, and he was down 2 points in this match. And this was back in the days where chess fans were spoiled. You had the old school chess match format from the days of Fischer and of yore. And you know, there were the 2 cycles then. There was the PCA, Professional Chess Player Association, that was being governed by Kasparov after he broke away from FIDE, the World Chess Organization, which had its own cycle. And there were so many great matches. Oh, it was just the best. For real fans of chess that have been with chess for a long time, you know what I'm talking about. These matches were amazing. I mean, of course, Fischer's fame after 6-zip, 2 other GMs who were world class, Bent Larsen, Mark Tiamanov. I mean, had a little hiccup against Petrosian, and then he closed the show on Petrosian pretty well too. And then it's all in the history books now. He got to play Spassky for the world title. But here, this game is over, and it's such a delight. I mean, you get to look at forcing moves, you get to look at great tactics, great checkmates. So much we can learn from this game. Hope you've enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time. Stay well, be well. Take care. Bye-bye.